Hi, I'm Chris Stirewalt, and this is Power Play. How we doing, Internet? We're coming to you from Cleveland, which is, I guess, the right place for us to be, seeing as that's where the Republicans are having their convention. It's the first day of the convention today, but the week of activities is all laid out, and there is a lot to talk about. But our guest today is someone whose brain I treasure for a lot of reasons. He's a funny guy. He is survived having 5 daughters and being married to Mercy Schlapp. It's Matt Schlapp. He's the chairman of the American Conservative Union, and he is, in fact, a spokesman and thinker about conservatism. But he also happens to have one of the best brains in politics about how to win races. Matt, welcome.
I'm not known for my body, more my brains.
More of your brains, more of your brains. But your work in figuring out maps and paths for candidates is, I've always been impressed by it. This year, however, our work is more challenging.
It is. When
we look at maps, because the map is going to be different.
That's right.
When you look at, we had a slew of swing state polling last year, or last week, that showed us a different kind of map for Republicans, because the usual model, the Bush 04 model, because, by the way, he was part of that model.
And we won.
And you won, and did better in 04 than you did in 2000.
Right.
Colorado was yours in 04?
Yes.
So you win Virginia, Colorado, Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
You win... Did you win Iowa in 04?
We won. We did not win it in 00. Did we win it in 04? I believe we won it in 04.
May have won it.
Yeah.
And sorry, Iowa, we care a lot, but just after the
we barely
caucuses,
lost it in 00.
It was very close.
Barely lost Wisconsin.
And Minnesota was very close.
Yeah, very close.
So the traditional Republican map is solid south, the L, the Intermountain West, including Nevada, Colorado, those states, Arizona, and then down across the solid south, starting at Texas, going over. And then, even with that, you still have to pick off a couple of more.
That's right.
You still need a couple of New Hampshire.
That's right.
You need something else to fall your way.
That's right.
Now, the conventional wisdom would say, if the polls are right in Colorado and Virginia, the Republican map doesn't work, because it's the Florida and Ohio, the solid L. If you take anything out of that, because what was your electoral count in 2004?
You're going to quiz me on this, all these numbers?
You got to have
this. You know,
like 284.
That's right.
Something like that.
That's right.
Decent, but you couldn't have taken too many building blocks out of that one.
We all kind of know what it was in 00. That's an easier one to remember.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. That's why West Virginia, that's when West Virginia got to matter.
That's right.
In an election.
That's right. We care about the Mountaineers.
Five little electoral votes.
They're a solid little part of the coalition now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in this coalition, if the surveys are predictive, which we don't know that they'll be predictive. We just know that that's what they say now. It's the state of the race now. Colorado and Virginia look like trouble for Republicans. There is polling in Virginia that says that it's competitive, but the trend line in Virginia has not been good for Republicans.
That's right.
It's moved away from the GOP.
That's right.
In the last 8 years.
That's totally right.
So, if you're putting together a path for Donald Trump, if you were putting on your old hat as political director, if you did that, what kind of strategy and what kind of map would you lay out for him?
So we did crazy things, like we kept working on California in 00. We just kept thinking, and we kept thinking, You did? Oh, we did, and we worked Washington long and hard, and we went to Hawaii. You know, we were thinking things were going to pop our way in 04, right?
Okay.
So I just think Trump can't do that, right? He has to focus on those Bush states that you talked about, the must. Ohio, Florida, Virginia. I just believe that
no Republican, let's be clear, no Republican has won the presidency without Ohio, full stop.
That's right.
Well, since Lincoln.
That's right.
That's never happened, and only one Republican in the last century won without Florida, and I think that was Cal Coolidge.
And you know, that's we don't have to worry about going back that far.
Right, exactly.
The point is this: he's got to nail these states down. Now, where are the Trump problems? Obviously, I think Ohio, despite what's going on with this Kasich drama, I think Ohio matches up well for Trump. Yes. I think in the end he gets this thing done. Florida, obviously, huge number of Hispanic voters, huge, and he's got to figure out a way to repair many of those relationships, including with Marco Rubio. And then you have Virginia. Virginia is very interesting because D.C. is a big part of Virginia now. All of these folks that work in D.C. are part of the kind of D.C. political complex. A lot of them live in Virginia, and a lot of them don't like the idea of Donald Trump coming in and maybe making them unemployed.
And just demographically speaking, Northern Virginia has
Totally
gotten
right.
younger.
That's right.
More single.
That's right.
So you have any place where there are large numbers of single women.
It's not a great sign for us.
It's not a great sign for Republicans.
That's right.
Married women, sometimes.
Better.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the single ladies are not feeling
That's right.
the Republican
There's a song
vibe.
about this.
Right, exactly.
But so I think he has to focus. He's got to nail those down. And I think if there were the 2 states where he should think that maybe they could come his way, I think Pennsylvania is real from the people I talked to on the ground, that there's real movement there. They don't love her. The problem for Donald Trump is it comes down to operations, which he's not strong at, and that turnout in Philly. We'll call it turnout. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt by calling it turnout.
It's too early to call fraud.
That's
too
right.
Early to call fraud.
Or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Philly will determine the state, and that's why everyone says these polls don't matter that much.
And by the way, one thing about Pennsylvania, and here's how the Republicans get punked on Pennsylvania all the time, is minority voter intensity, traditionally, black voter intensity in particular, doesn't escalate until the end of the cycle. There is a thing about that. So the Republicans are like, hey, let's go. It's October. We're going to go barnstorm through Pennsylvania. We think it's in play. And then that thing happens in the last 3 weeks of the election. African-American voters in Philadelphia tune in, and the polls go. Bleep.
Party bosses matter. What happens inside those black Christian churches matters. And just good old-fashioned operations matter, especially when your vote is concentrated.
But at the same time, Western Pennsylvania, so Pennsylvania traditionally was, Philadelphia, what do they say? Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and Kentucky in the middle.
Alabama in the middle,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
But increasingly, southwestern Pennsylvania and suburban Pittsburgh has become redder and redder and redder.
That's right.
Especially on EPA issues and those things.
Right.
So places like Beaver County and others that were always Democratic now are starting to go the other way.
Yeah, I mean, all these questions of energy and the proper stewardship of the resources we have, they're big issues with these folks.
And so Pennsylvania, let's say, and I know that they wouldn't cede anything today, but again, working on the premise that Virginia, Colorado, Nevada, not looking good for, let's say he didn't win them. We don't know how it's going to end up. Then you have to have Pennsylvania. You need Pennsylvania and some more, too,
You might
right?
need Michigan. And I think that's the other state where we ought to spend some time in. I know you look at these numbers and you say, well, is it really winnable? And I just say, you know, there are just some characteristics of the state that I think play into the major Trump themes. And I would spend time there.
So I think Michigan is out of reach. But
it could be. And if it is, it's problematic if what you said in those other states comes to be true.
Do you know it's just a sweetie for Trump? I think it's just waiting out there like the last caramel in the box.
What is that?
Minnesota. I think Minnesota, because you guys were close in Minnesota.
You're right. It was one of my states.
You guys were breathtakingly close.
Yes.
And remember, the Norm Coleman race ends up in a tie.
That's right.
Minnesota is sort of like the inverse of Texas. Everybody thinks Texas is so Republican, and it is, but the margins, the percentages are not huge. It's not Alabama with 22-point blowouts. It tends to be pretty close. Minnesota's close. So I see a path.
And the Minnesota, the key is that Iron Range, right?
Yes,
those energy folks, those blue-collar folks as well. It's really running up those numbers. Now, Trump matches that area of the state very, very well.
Jesse the Body Ventura.
That's right.
Ross Perot. That energy is out there. So I have a thing. We can call it the St. Lawrence Seaway Express.
Ooh, that's good. I like that.
You come up from Pennsylvania.
Yes.
You get New Hampshire, which I think is eminently winnable.
He's going to get. I think he's going to get
eminently winnable. Depending on how he does with the Boston suburbanites. Then Maine.
There's another name for them, too.
Yeah. Well, it's the internet. You can't say masshole on
I'm
the
not
internet.
going to say it.
You're allowed. Then Maine, which is Paul LePage, governor there, Trump, and that state has a lot of that energy in it, too. And then we go down the St. Lawrence. We come across the Great Lakes, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa.
Yep.
I mean,
it's doable.
That's a path, the northern tier.
The only thing that I worry about a state we haven't talked about is a state like Missouri, who, with Obama, it seemed to be clearly
done. No longer a
right. I think we're not going to be there. I think we're going to have to watch Missouri, and so we're going to have to see. Look, here's the thing about Trump: is he really is. We've all talked about the fact that yes, he's a Republican. He's registered as a Republican. But here's the facts.
Right.
He really hasn't been a Republican very long. And he doesn't know these people in these states. He doesn't know a lot of these activists, which is why he's got still has some convention trouble. And, you know, all these numbers we're looking at, I think this week has a lot to do with where those numbers are going to be. This is the introduction of not Donald Trump primary candidate. It's the introduction of this question. Can you see this man in the Oval Office? That's the answer that has to get answered in the affirmative, or he's in big trouble this week.
So that's why I don't understand the Pence pick.
I know. I've seen what you said.
I don't get it, because by my lights, you have to win crossover voters. He has to convince very skeptical. When I look at his numbers with college-educated women, and they are so dire, he can't. It's not sustainable. Why not make a pick that reinforces him not as a traditional Republican, but as this unicorn, this thing that has happened where the Reform Party comes into the Republican Party, basically? Why not embrace that energy and try to reach out to those voters?
All right, so if I had been involved in these decisions, I would have said, you're an outsider, you don't have a lot of government experience, go with your strength. Keep doing that. You don't have to get an insider to be on the ticket, but when he decided in his mind that he wanted to get an insider, of all the choices he made, I think Pence is a total home run. Now, if he had gone with another outsider as the VP, then at the same time this week he would have to unveil, here's the types of people I want to put on my team.
Yeah.
You know, here's where John Bolton's going to be. Here's where the wonderful Fox News contributor, maybe another Fox News contributor, KT McFarland. Here's where, you know, Michael Mukasey might be on this team. He would have
Giuliani.
Giuliani and Christie and others, but and Newt Gingrich. And here's how he'd complement the team. He would have had to do that, or I think he would have had a whole lot of trouble this week at the convention.
All right, can Pence mollify at least the Republican donor class?
Way beyond that.
Really?
We're way beyond that. I would say, yeah, let's start with the donor class. I think the number one, the donor class does not tend to be that ideological. The donor class, if they're anything, they're moderate, but they like to win. And they all have business interests. And they want a guy in the White House who they think will do a good job, but also someone they can touch and contact and deal with. And the biggest thing about Donald Trump for that donor class is that they think he's unsteady. They don't know where he's going to be. He says these things that to them are outlandish. I think Pence, even if they don't agree with him on every social issue, he's calm.
Steady.
He's steady. He's a Hoosier. But I'm a Kansan. I get this. But it's a little more placid.
Will it matter to them if, and I don't know whether you saw the interview that Trump did or in his introduction of Pence.
I saw several excerpts.
It does not seem like he is going to be an integral part of the Trump organization. It seems like he might be a marginal figure. Does that matter?
Most vice presidents are marginal figures. Dick Cheney belied that point. Al Gore, for a couple of years, belied that point. I don't ever know what to make of Joe Biden. You know, he's like a hood ornament. I don't really understand it. He's there.
I like the onion version of Joe Biden. The onions version of Joe Biden when he steals copper pipe and stuff, and I just go with that.
That's exactly right.
So you agree there is a northern tier. There is a northern tier of states that are basically, we're talking here about states that are more than 75% white. We're talking about states that have large blue-collar populations, and Pennsylvania could be the keystone.
Keystone.
Yes, it could be.
Well, and the other key here is what parts of the economy are doing great. If you could name one or two, I'd love to hear it. But what parts of the economy are doing great, and what parts of the economy are just really lagging?
Pizza emojis, I think, are doing
lagging
really well.
So much that people are beginning to wonder if they're not going to be able to get it back again.
Okay.
That's where I think the Trump message really plays, because they've tried everything. And it hasn't happened. I mean, I went to school in South Bend, Indiana. You go to South Bend, Indiana today, you go there 30 years ago, it looks roughly the same. Those warehouses are closed.
You're not Catholic by any chance, are you?
5 kids, guilty.
Yeah, 5 kids went to college in South Bend. I don't know. Matt Schlapp, we thank you for your time. Have a great convention. And you, Internet, my gosh, thank you for stopping by. Aren't you wonderful? And we hope that you will come back for more Power Play real soon.